exercises that you will do until you're dead.
Yeah.
I think we've run similar concepts like this before, but I'm curious to see if they've evolved. By definition, they shouldn't have evolved because any previous listed exercise should still be on the list, seeing that we're both still alive. But I'm curious if you have, 3 to 5 exercises that you think, almost regardless of program, regardless of goal, what might change, if any. We haven't changed at all in our exercise goals, really.
Right.
What stays in forever, you think?
Yeah. I think I can think of 5 exercises off the top of my mind that are like kind of gold standard in terms of like these are things I always want to be able to do, and as long as I can do these proficiently, like I will maintain a high level of functionality. I have the capability to maintain a high level of strength, and I can center my training around these things, improving these things, and I think it will give me continued benefit. So basically the way I split this is there's core, there's upper push, upper pull, lower push, lower pull. So the way that I'd go about it, upper body, you can kind of interchange these. I think I've actually changed my perspective on this as of recently, probably since we've done the last episode. I think previously I've said the pull up. Now I think I've come around to a single arm lat pull down. Just
Really?
yes.
You're
Yeah.
so good at pull-ups.
Right, right. Yeah, but the difference here is I think it's more infinitely scalable is the thing. So,
Mm.
and I'm talking like full overhead. This is something you can increase loading, you can decrease, and I think this lends well to being able to perform well in a pull up. I just think that the variability of loading is the thing that pushes this just slightly ahead of the pull up for me. I think the pull up
Mm.
is the expression of function, and this is how you're actually going to train the function of the shoulder. So that's one that may be a new stand-in for one of the older exercises. But I could be convinced either way. Like I could, the equipment needed to do that versus a pull-up could be the thing that set me back to like, just do pull-ups. Like it's not a strong preference, but I do think if I were to choose one or the other, I think I would probably at this point go with a single arm lat pull down. So
Interesting. I think you'll be surprised that I have a similar relationship with one of my lower body exercises that we're going to differ on. I'm almost certain of it. But
yeah,
continue. So we got single arm lat pull down. New to you've been, you know what? I think it's the fine Swedish Zin packs that you've been rocking. You've been on a tear lately. I just got to say, big fan of your podcast lately as someone who's on the other side of the podcast.
hey, thanks,
Hey,
man. I
here's
appreciate
looking
it.
at you, dog.
Thanks,
Appreciate
man.
you.
Yeah, yeah. It's the mixture. We've been over this recently. Caffeine, nicotine, alpha GPC. I'm
there
not
was
on
just
the
an
methamphetamines just yet.
there was an artistry to the caffeine and Zin nicotine coming into focus too, as it like your camera. It just came into depth of field. It was like, see, that's the kind of shit you can't. Man, there's some wisdom here on this podcast. So, all right, continue. We got single arm lat pull down in your one spot.
Yeah. Um, with that, I have to. This has been long standing. I think for both of us, upper body push is going to be a dip. Yeah, similar. I think there's like you can draw the parallel with the pull up and the dip versus the single arm lat pull down. I think I recently answered a Q&A on my Instagram where I think I pulled out the dip and I put dumbbell bench press. That would be kind of my um, close second there. I think I'd still keep the dip ahead. Just because I think a dip is much more attainable for people, and I think the body weight resistance is something that I don't think it's as much of a hang up for people in a dip as it is a pull up. But dumbbell bench press would be my close second there because you are getting a bit of shoulder extension in that. And I also like the open chain nature of it. But I think dip edges that out for me. Lower body, it's going to be a walking lunge and a B stance RDL. And then core for me, this I think you could put this, you can kind of scale this up and down, make it in kind of the same family, either like a Roman chair leg raise or like a pull up bar hanging leg raise. I think
Interesting.
they're my five. So
I
to sum
would
it
have
up,
thought squats.
uh, squats would be preference. Like
Yeah.
squats is like if I'm talking like something I want to do forever, I'd
Mm.
put snatch and squat in there. They're the two that bring me the most enjoyment,
Insane.
and the ones that I want to be able to do at a high level of proficiency forever. But I think in terms of like, I've accepted it, and I saw like my old man go through this when he gave up jujitsu. It's like there's going to be a point where the things that I want to do no longer serve me in terms of like moving well, living well, being healthy, being strong. And I think that like a lunge and a B stance RDL give me everything I need in terms of being able to be strong, being able to have a high level of function at the core, the hip, the lower body that outweighs the gratification of being able to squat.
Mm. And probably will be the thing that facilitates you able to do that for a longer period of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cause
Uh,
even right now, like if I don't have a unilateral squat variation, like a split squat or a lunge in my program, like my squat suffers and I get like ridiculous pain and shit when I squat because of it. So it's
mm,
like, I can't do this without that. So this
right.
comes before that.
Yeah. I have a similar. So just to recap yours quick, we
Yeah.
had
So,
single arm lat pull down.
yep. We had dip, then we had walking lunge, B stance RDL, hanging leg raise.
Okay. All right. Dip. I'll double down where there's room to double down. Dip for sure. And
Yep.
like my criteria and how I'm doing this is things that when I don't do it, everything else goes to shit.
Ah, yes.
So that's like kind of the prerequisite to the lifts that I want to do forever. These are the base units I need to have. So pull ups and dips out of the gate. I think pull ups for me, just given my shoulder issues, having basically a full expression of upward rotation of the scap, external rotation, internal rotation of the shoulder. You're going to touch both ends of shoulder function moving from dip to pull up. Pronated grip. I use straps when I do dips just to mitigate, grip as a limiter. I have yet to,
I'm sorry,
although
you said dips or pull ups for
pull up.
sure.
Sorry, um, I've yet to, although I feel soon compelled to add weight to the pull up.
Mhm.
It's been a while since I've done weighted pull ups, but I am a big fan of weighted chins. As a
Mhm.
point of context, when I add weighted chins, I regress to a neutral grip, then a
Mhm.
narrow then a narrow pronated, and then a wide pronated. So I don't just make the shift to, a wider grip, outside a neutral shoulder with pull up with weights. I go back to a more externally rotated neutral grip pull up, and then I go from there and progress. It's not a for everyone recommendation, but with my pec tear on the right side, it's definitely something I ease into because the strength of my lats, the efficiency of my pull-ups, adding weight, I could add, I don't know, I could probably add 40, 50 pounds to my pull-ups out of the jump and be okay for, decent amount of volume, 1 or 2 sets, 6 to 8 reps. But exposing that internally rotated shoulder with a distraction force with an extra 50 pounds to a shoulder that's missing one of its primary internal rotators, the pec, or at least a large majority of it, like I'm very tentative. I don't think that most people need that recommendation for two reasons. If you have all your pec, you're probably good to go. And if you're not at the point where you're adding 50 pounds out of the gate to your weighted pull-ups, probably don't expose yourself to the same level of risk. I just happen to have those two compounding factors, which leads me to like, hey, let's bring back to like somewhat of a regressed pattern as I add the load and then give myself exposure in the neutral position in like a narrower pronated grip and then back to a wider grip. So I can make multiple progressions of load and also grip width to challenge the movement rather than just increasing load. Because that is a big jump for me with, kind of playing behind the eight ball of being able to load fairly heavy and then also having a shoulder that's missing a few parts. So pull-ups to dips, they're in there. Single arm dumbbell rows
Yeah.
for me, like I think those in my world serve as your B stance RDL.
Yeah.
They give me a tremendous amount of trunk rotation. Um, so, and again, I'm kind of talking specifically from my pec tear, seems to be the stem of a lot of problems. Like I have a right quad tear and a right pec tear, both non-full, so they're still partially attached, but cause a tremendous amount of issues, as you could imagine. So one of the things that the pec tear has left me with is like a pretty considerable asymmetry in trunk rotation. Like it's just fucking shredded my ribs into rotation. So I can rotate right shoulder to left side into infinity, but left to right, I struggle. And it's actually to the level of like, you can notice it. When I was getting my back tattooed, my tattoo artist noticed it. Like so much so, like, he's not a fucking biomechanist, but he deals with backs all the time. What the fuck's going on here? And like, I have a scoliosis on like my upper T spine to the right because of my pec tear. So the dumbbell row really helps, keep that rotation bilaterally symmetric as much as it can. So we're in for pull-ups, dips, single arm dumbbell row, overhead tricep extension.
Oh yeah, that's a good
So
one.
an overhead tricep extension for me is like the inverse of the pull-up, in the sense that the pull-up is like guiding my scapula into upward rotation. It's kind of like forcing the action there. But I want to follow suit with that and actually be able to actively move and be in a position where I can challenge that upward rotation, because the dumbbell is obviously going to pull my shoulder down, where the pull-up is pulling my shoulder up and out. So I think that for me is one that when I neglect it, elbows get weird, shoulders get weird, presses get, weak. And it's really more of me. It's a point of data collection where it's like, if I go do that, my elbow kind of hurts. Like, oh, I need to spend more time like warming up, or I need to, here's a classic one. I need to take a rest day or two.
Yeah.
Right. Like my elbows get cranky. Like elbows to me are kind of like, they come into effect with poor sleep, which is oftentimes linked with overstimulus, under recovery, too much training, too much stims, too many days with like, if I don't train, I don't take pre-workout, I might not have caffeine the entire day. Right. There are times where I wake up, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like I'm kind of just pounding keys all day. I don't need a coffee. So there's a confluence of factors that come together that will signal that I need to take a rest day. And elbow pain is definitely one of them. And I find that mechanically that alarm can sound much sooner if I take that exercise out of the program.